here on the screen side we are viewing through, this is bLink, one of the stronger players here in Cebu, the 2024 Outbreak champion and a consistent meetup champion here in this region. And his challenger right now in the Swiss rounds in round one is Blue. And Blue is one of those players who really loves using a particular set of skills. She loves using a strategy called Trick Room that inverts everyone's speeds on their heads. So what whether these players have in fact fought each other several times before and were practically on the same team for the national league. So both players are of national level skill. So this should be a very good match to witness. Both players have improved drastically ever since they joined the national league. Blake, actual veteran of the national league, and Jamie or Blue, who has only recently joined it, has improved drastically. They're both very good players, so let's see how this goes. Now, both players have exchange sheets here. I have copies of their teams now. Blink is using a balanced Dragapult team, which is very interesting because it is equipped for so many things. We see Blink here with the choice scarf on that Infernape, making sure that it is the fastest thing on the field, while also having that choice band on the Dragapult. Now, the Dragapult hits really hard, the Infernape moves really fast. And to even it out, King Gambit will always move priority with that Sucker Punch. Electabuzz, former a Gen 1 Pokemon, has very good redirection. But when we look at Jamie's side, Natsuyuki, she's sporting a very aggressive team here with a Sneasler, a Pelipper, and a Basculegion. So it almost looks like it's geared specifically for rain. But with that greedy Loratus and the Hatterene in the back, she has her signature strategy of Trick Room right there. Now the Hatterene with that Life Orb and the Loratus with the Assault Vest, those are really hard hitters and pretty good damage sponges if Jimmy ever decides to go on that Trick Room mode that her team can use. But that Basculegion and Sneasler right there for an impressive burst of speed and damage as well. Now both players seem to be at a pretty even match, and both players know each other well. So let's see how this plays out. So we do see that Jamie here is leading with her Basculegion and her Sneasler on point for the fast mode. Again, we do see Dragapult and Infernape an even faster lead from Blink. So the way this would probably go is the Basculegion and Sneasler are technically slower despite their usually faster speed that they're known for, just because Dragapult is currently the fastest Pokemon on this in this regulation, while Infernape is sporting that choice card, making it the fastest thing on the field right now. Now, if we look through these team sheets here, we can see that the Infernape with that choice scarf does not have Iron Fist, so it won't be getting boosts, but it does have coaching and that Flare Blade. It can opt for immediate damage boost or assist its friend there. But we do see Jamie here switch out the Sneasler for the Pelipper, dampening anything. So that Infernape used Flare Blitz on first turn, that's not going to do much, but that Rain will be boosting that Basculegion. It has Swim, so it is currently the fastest thing on the field. Even faster than the Infernape, but we have to see the Dragapult from Blink does go for the Terra Dragon, making it resist water moves. Coaching comes out from the Infernape. Interestingly, this will be interesting to see that Infernape, even with the Rain boost, is faster than the Basculegion. But the Basculegion just goes straight to the Wave Track into Infernape and takes it out in one hit. But we do see that the Dragapult has been boosted by coaching, and Basculegion has been weakened after that coaching from the Infernape. Its job is done. Dragon Dart pokes the Basculegion once, takes it out immediately despite that low base power. The Terra Dragon just boosting it to phenomenal levels. And the second one, a little not enough against the Pelipper. However, the Pelipper, we do know, is using a Focus Sash, so that wouldn't have been enough to KO it anyway. The question now is, who will both players be subbing for their down Pokemon? bLink comes out here with his Gorilla Boom, evening the playing field by putting up a green field of grass. And Jamie responds to it with an aggressive play, pulling out Sneasler. Now, Dragapult is still the fastest thing here, so it's also locked onto that Dragon Dart with the Choice Band. Now, Rillaboom here does have the fake out pressure as well as that Grassy Glide priority pressure. That Pelipper, it may not want to be on that field for very long. However, Pelipper can still do massive damage, but with that Hurricane, however, Weather Ball will not be doing anything. Sneasler is Sneasler. Both players have fake out pressure actually. So who's faking out who? That's the real question here. And we do see, in fact, the Grassy Glide go straight for the Pelipper. Jamie did not opt to use Fake Out. Dragon Darts will, unfortunately, smack that Sneasler twice in the face. But it only needed one hit. It did not need both hits to take out that Sneasler. We're seeing just how incredible of a lead that Infernape was for bLink here, considering that coaching was all in top. And in the back we have the Lurantis. Usually Lurantis is not used very often, but with an Assault Vest and that Assault Vest in the grass, it does have Contrary, so it has a way to boost its power here with that superpower. So boosts become debuffs and buffs become debuffs and debuffs become buffs when that Lurantis decides to do anything. But we see that the Dragapult here, with that +1 Terra boosted Dragon Dart, it's doing just so much damage. Choice Band just does so much for this Dragapult, but Terra Dragon just also boosts it to insane levels. So bLink here, very masterfully clearing out the first round. Now this is a best of 3, so they will be playing a game 2. Jamie will be able to bring this back, but it may be a bit of an uphill battle. So again, game 2, Jamie now knows that that Infernape will be the fastest thing on the field, even if Pelipper and Basculegion are on her side. So that Infernape is extremely fast, so much so that Basculegion with Swift Swim is unable to outspeed it in the rain. Perhaps Jamie can use this to her advantage by going for a slower Trick Room mode, or she can lean into it by threatening the Infernape a little more. However, we know that by going for the Infernape, you're just allowing the Dragapult to roam free. So the question really is, if bLink goes for the same lead, it may play out similarly unless Jamie makes a strong adjustment here. But as we can see from the previous game, bLink is still with a slight advantage here, considering that he didn't need to change too much. So perhaps he will be playing the same leads and playouts. But again, he can also make an adjustment for the adjustment that Jamie might make. Jamie still has that Trick Room mode, changing the speed values. So what was once fast becomes slow, and what's slow becomes fast. In Pokemon, the only thing that really matters is the speed here. Speed practically is everything. So we did see here that both players have locked in, and the second game will begin. So we see Jamie here, Link, Sneasler, and Hatterene. Dragapult, interestingly, if you look at the field, Infernape is still capable of doing massive amounts of instant damage, but it's also capable of boosting that Dragapult once more. Dragapult here a bit on the interesting side because it is a ghost, so it cannot be faked out by that Sneasler. However, it is also unable to use Dragon Darts to lock in against that Hatterene, because that Hatterene is a fairy and fairies are immune to Dragon type moves. Jamie has a chance here to turn things around with an immediate Trick Room, but again, the speed values could be very difficult, and there could be an aggressive approach here with Dazzling Gleam, but that Infernape does resist it. And we will see a turn 1 Terra from bLink straight into the Infernape. Having that Terra Ghost, it cannot be slammed by Fake Out. Last game we saw that it is Terra Dragon. But this turn, Hatterene uses Protect, trying to scout out bLink possibly. So that Sneasler will probably be have a little more leeway. Infernape goes into the Hatterene. Now it is also locked in. Both of bLink's Pokemon are now absolutely locked into the Hatterene. But Jamie now sees that it doubles. And she goes straight for the Throat Chop. However, it is not enough. That Infernape is still standing. And that Hatterene, well, it probably doesn't want to eat that U-turn. Well, specifically 2 U-turns. One from a very fast ape and one from a very angry dragon. So again, the speed values are still interesting here because we now know that both of bLink's Pokemon are locked into U-turn. So we may be seeing a double switch immediately here, or maybe Jamie will respond with an aggressive threat. It's interesting to note that several of Jamie's Pokemon will have difficulty with switching in and out, so controlling the battlefield may be enough. U-turn from Infernape just didn't do too much, about 20% goes into the Hatterene. So Jamie here has some leeway if Jamie has decided to go for a Trick Room. But that Infernape does swap out immediately for the King Gambit. And the Dragapult also smacks straight into the Hatterene. And swaps out immediately for the Rillaboom. Interesting. So bLink's Rillaboom here comes out and threatens both of them. He still has Fake Out pressure against both the Hatterene and the Sneasler. So that King Gambit also has a very interesting set here, where he has the ability to use Sucker Punch. But Trick Room does go up. Speed values are now swapped in. Now the slowest Pokemon on the field is the fastest one. By traditional value, we know that King Gambit is slightly faster than Hatterene, and Rillaboom is slightly faster than King Gambit. But we all know that Sneasler is extremely fast, so right now the turns will be swapped. Sneasler will be the last to move, and Hatterene will be the first to move. But that doesn't really matter with Rillaboom and the King Gambit. Both of them have priority pressure, so they can basically just ignore the speed values and attack whenever they want, provided they go for a priority move. And we see Jamie here pull out her Sneasler and send out the Indeedee counter immediately, thinking about that immediate pressure. So if Jamie has opted to use Expanding Force here, it will do massive damage to the Rillaboom. However, both the King Gambit itself will not be able to do anything. The second terrain does override the priority. King Gambit just immediately resists that, and Rillaboom takes massive damage for its troubles. We do see Kalatao come out from the King Gambit straight into the Hatterene, but Trick Room is still up. So we now see Lurantis. We know that the Terra bLink Terra'd his Pokemon earlier. So Infernape is a ghost, Dragapult is a ghost, so this might be pretty dicey. The Lurantis does have the ability to boost itself using Superpower, but if bLink decides to swap out his Pokemon, Superpower probably won't even do much for anything. But again, why would bLink want to switch out with such an advantage? He could straight go into a Kowtow, but the threat of the Lurantis may just be enough to sway his mind. But again, he has the ability to switch in 2 Pokemon or ghosts here. But if he predicts it wrong, this Lurantis still has that knockoff. So whether they play aggressive turns or defensive ones, that's gonna be the remain of the game. We do see bLink pull out his Rillaboom, and switch in for that Infernape. So again, we see these Ghost King Gambit goes to the protect. The question is, what is the Lurantis and the Indeedee doing? Indeedee uses Follow Me, trying to just stay focused on that boost. And Lurantis superpower straight into the King Gambit. Doing nothing, it was protected completely. So now King Gambit can actually, there's some major mind games going on because if bLink decides to swap the King Gambit in for Dragapult and Jamie decides to go straight for another superpower, it's gonna do nothing. However, if he predicts it wrongly and Lurantis decides to do something with that knockoff, it might just KO someone. But if he decides to stay in and do damage, that Lurantis may use superpower again. But on Jamie's side, she still has the ability to Terra here. She may be able to Terra out of this situation, but having Terra Grass is a pretty big deal. That Infernape still has that Flare Blitz. Terra Poison will mitigate some damage though. And we see bLink swap out the King Gambit for that Dragapult. Both Pokemon Ghosts now. Lurantis using superpower will not do anything. Follow Me does come back out from the Indeedee. And again, predicted that both players just playing it out here. Coaching comes back once more for the Dragapult. And an interesting thing we still have to note that this is still one turn of Trick Room. So this will be this may be the turn that dictates how things will go. Considering that Lurantis is now free to use knockoff or to superpower into a possible swap. But at the same time, bLink is now completely free to just use Dragon Darts as we've seen from game 1 with that Dragapult. And Infernape is free. Well, Infernape can just switch out here. Infernape can switch out or opt to go for more coaching. And we do see that bLink does decide that, being locked into coaching is not exactly what I want to do. So Rillaboom comes back out still in the red. Changes out that terrain. So priority can now be enabled by both members of the team. Jamie does decide to go for that Terra Poison on the Lurantis, just to get rid of that fire weakness. However, this really won't do much if bLink has decided to go for Dragon Darts. Indeedee goes again for the Follow Me. Becomes the center of attention, so knockoff comes up, and it is just not enough into the Dragapult. That coaching did so much. However, even with +1, you can see that even Indeedee tanks those. Unfortunately, we see that it only managed to do about 60% with the knockoff. Knockoff will be doing reduced damage into the Dragapult, unfortunately. So Jamie might have to think of a different strategy here to take out that Dragapult, considering that she still does have a Pokemon in the back. But Indeedee here will have to do something in order to survive. Dragapult still locked into those Dragon Darts will be able to just cause havoc. But we notice that the Rillaboom is now free to both have Fake Out and Grassy Glide. Both players have some intense advantage here. Indeedee opts to go for a Follow Me, focusing the attention right there once more. But again, we were knocked off. The Dragapult was knocked off, so it no longer has to be locked into those Dragon Darts. Indeedee goes down for its troubles after using that Follow Me, but gives this Lurantis a free shot at whoever's coming back in. Now the question is, after that U-turn, will bLink swap into the King Gambit and possibly eat a superpower, or will it be swapping into the Infernape, eating a possible knockoff? So we're gonna see it here, folks. And it is a Leech Life. Neither of us predicted those, but a little extra health goes a long way. The ghostly Infernape does go down to that bug. Well, it is now a poisonous bug. King Gambit comes out subbing in for that Infernate. And Jamie sends out the Sneasler once more. Dragapult here is not on the field, but it will be moving first here. Now, the thing with Phantom Force is it can't be protected. Whoever it has targeted will have to eat the brunt of this damage. So, that in DD earlier was probably possibly the only thing that fully resisted it. However, both Lurantis and Sneasler here. Now, if you look at it, Jamie might have the chance to just use superpower into the King Gambit slot, because even if he switches out, it hits the Rillaboom. But if he decides to stay in, well, he'll eat a fake out for his troubles. As we can see, Sneasler fakes out directly into the King Gambit, smacks the Lurantis for half its health, and Jamie smacks back, and one hit KOs the King Gambit from that superpower. Now, again, both players here. bLink preserving his Rillaboom for that endgame very masterfully. bLink will have Fake Out pressure and Grassy Glide pressure here on this last possible last turn for this last stage of this game. So both players have one Pokemon in the yellow and another that's fairly healthy. But we've seen just how much damage Dragapult can do given the chance. So the real question here is, who's going to be able to outdamage who? Right now, the Lurantis does have more power, but at the same time, it still has access to that Leech Life. Whoever gets faked out will have to, well, bLink's going to have to decide fast which one. Sneasler can do massive damage to both the Dragapult and the Rillaboom, and we also know that the Lurantis is at +1, so it may be enough to survive several hits. Fake Out comes from and starts. It is just not enough. It's not enough for both Pokemon, however, the flinch. But we know that the speed values here, the Dragapult, unfortunately, is faster than both the Sneasler and the Lurantis. So unless that +2 would be enough to actually do something for both of them. So bLink just locks in with Dragon Darts. It is enough to take out the Lurantis, unfortunately. And it would most likely be enough to take out that weakened Sneasler as well, earning bLink the game 2. Going for a 2-0. We see exactly why he's a champion. Both players played very well here. That was a fairly played out match, quite long actually for VGC standards. So again, congrats to both players and well done.